Before we get started, let's look at the tools you'll need to install your new Ribcage Mod Kit. A set of precision screwdrivers with a Phillips number 0. If you have a GoPro Hero 3, you'll need a Torx T4 screwdriver. If you have a Hero 3 Plus, this is not required. A utility knife. An air puffer is recommended, as is a lens cloth or CCD cleaner. Hero 3 Plus users will require a small metal file, a roll of electrical tape, a roll of 3M double-sided tape. It's important to note that none of the operations you'll be performing require force. Patience and a gentle touch are all that is required. It's not recommended to switch back and forth between the GoPro configuration and the Ribcage Mod Kit, as doing so will create stress and wear on the components. Now let's run through the steps you need to perform to install the Ribcage Mod Kit. The first thing you need to do is remove the accessories, SD card, and the battery. For the teardown portion of this video, we'll be using a Hero 3 black camera. There are some small differences in the Hero 3 Plus, but the steps are the same. To remove the front cover, use a miniature screwdriver or plastic spudger. Gently insert the tool under the upper left corner of the cover and begin working your way around the camera. The faceplate is attached using snap points and adhesive tape. Pull the faceplate off and set it aside. Now we'll remove the screws that attach the internal components to the housing. Remove the screws located in the four corners and set them aside. On the GoPro Hero 3, you will require a Torx T4 screwdriver, but on the Hero 3 Plus, a Phillips is used. To remove the interior parts, gently insert a small flat screwdriver between the components and the housing next to the HDMI port and lift the housing slightly over the ports. Grip the lens and work the PCB board assembly out of the housing by gently rocking the lens assembly back and forth until the internal aluminum plate and PC board assembly is out. On the GoPro Hero 3 Plus, be mindful of the new ribbon that connects the PCB board to the housing. To release the ribbon, pull up on the black locking mechanism and gently pull it free. Remove the heat transfer tape that wraps around the bottom of the camera by using your nails or a small flat screwdriver to pull up on the edge, and gently pull the tape off from back to front. If you have a Hero 3 Plus, this is not required. Remove the four screws holding the CMOS plate onto the rear of the assembly, and then set them aside. On the Hero 3 Plus Black, there is no black backing material on the image sensor. Gently pull to disconnect the connector joining the CMOS and PCB board. Use your fingernail or a flat screwdriver to gently pull up the plastic locking tab prior to removing the metal tape inserted into the board connector located on the side. Remove the screw that attaches the PCB board and the aluminum plate. It's located on the top of the assembly next to the battery contacts. Gently pull the PCB board away from the aluminum plate. Unscrew the 3 screws holding the lens assembly onto the aluminum plate. Pull the lens assembly away from the aluminum plate. Gently pull the adhesive backing from the plate. If you have a Hero 3 Plus, this is not required. Now it's time to remove the LCD button assembly from the aluminum plate. It's very important to take your time and use a gentle touch with this step. Damage to this component will mean it will have to be replaced for the camera to function properly. Push up on the LCD display from the back. It's important to prevent the LCD screen from falling over and bending the ribbon. Pull up on the metal tape that was released earlier and gently pull the assembly free. Make sure the gray adhesive area is not stuck down when you start to pull, or it may not come off properly. Be sure to take your time. It's held on with an adhesive backing, so remember this isn't a race. Slowly and gently work the adhesive bit by bit until the part comes free. Try not to bend the ribbon at sharp angles to prevent any possible damage, and don't use any prying or scraping tools to force it off. In some cases, the adhesive can be stubborn and pieces of the backing may be left behind. If this is the case in your project, we recommend adding a small piece of 3M double-sided tape to the affected area. Now you've successfully disassembled your GoPro camera. Now it's time to move on to the fun stuff, installing your new Ribcage Mod Kit. Let's start by opening up your new kit and removing the various parts. For a complete list of the parts and hardware, please refer to pages 2 and 3 of our PDF installation guide. Remove the 2 screws holding on the tripod mount and the cover plate. You can use your own tools or make use of the Allen keys in the bag provided. The IR cut filter is stored inside. Next, we'll remove the LED covers from the original faceplate. Take a blunt, non-metallic tool, such as the end of a pen, and apply pressure to the edges until they come free. Turn the faceplate over and use an X-Acto knife to cut the tab connecting the power button as pictured. Take the small rubber O-ring and cut it in half with scissors or a utility knife. Place the parts into the ribcage faceplate. Use a screwdriver to push in the LED covers by applying pressure to the edges. Work them in until seated correctly. Next, take each half of the rubber O-ring and place them behind the LED covers. This will prevent the covers from accidentally being pushed back into the camera after assembly. Next, insert the LCD power button strip into the PCB plate. Be sure to align the button and ribbon as closely as possible to the channel in the plate to ensure a tight fit later on, and to ensure the end extends out far enough to be reconnected. You'll now need the tools and screws provided in the kit. Place the plastic standoff over the image sensor. Take care not to touch the sensor during the following steps, but if you do, it can be cleaned later. Screw in 4 of the 1/4 inch screws provided through the holes in the back of the image sensor board and through the standoff. The Hero 3 has a black backing on the image sensor, but the following steps are the same. The backing does not need to be removed. If you wish to permanently install your IR cut filter, place it into the back of the M12 ring now before you connect it to the faceplate. Again, taking care not to add smudges or debris. Make sure the set screw hole is aligned to the top of the camera. Insert the image sensor and plastic standoff into the ribcage cover plate so that the 4 holes line up correctly. Ensure that 3 of the 4 screws are flush with the front of the cover plate. The 4th screw should extend beyond the cover plate slightly for attaching the M12 ring. You may now choose to permanently install your IR cut filter. Make sure to clean your CMOS sensor if any debris or smudges are visible. Inspect both the IR cut filter and sensor carefully to make sure that they are crystal clear before permanently installing. Cleaning the sensor after permanently installing the IR cut will mean having to partially disassemble your camera. If you want the IR cut to be removable for night vision, simply turn the ring over so that the filter socket faces forward. This is the configuration we'll be showing in the remainder of the video. If you choose to install the filter permanently, place it into the socket now and continue to follow along with the filter placed directly over the image sensor. Position the M12 ring with its set screw hole towards the top. Screw the first socket screw into the M12 ring, but do not tighten it. Remember, if you want the filter to be removable, make sure that the filter socket is facing forward. With the first screw loosely in position, turn the M12 ring to align the remaining 3 holes with the holes in the cover plate. Lastly, we will gently, in a repeating crisscross fashion, tighten all 4 screws until the M12 ring lays flush with the cover plate and the 4 screws are snug only, meaning tighten only to the point of contact. Attach the faceplate to the PCB plate. Carefully thread the flexible connector through the opening in the PCB plate. Once together, connect them with 2 of the 1/8 screws provided. Note, when all the pieces are properly aligned, the assembly fits together easily. Never force any of the components. Instead, check that they are seated properly and try again. If you wish, you could choose to place a small piece of double-sided tape on the back of the flexible 50-pin connector . Next, we'll connect the flexible jumper. Be very careful to align the tiny 50-pin connectors together before exerting a small amount of pressure. Forcing the connectors together will damage them, especially if they are not properly seated. Place a small piece of electrical tape over the metal stiffener on the flexible PCB. The tape will help isolate the metal stiffener from the bottom side of the PCB board that we'll be attaching next. Bend the flexible PCB 90 degrees. This will make attaching the PCB board in the next step easier. For Hero 3 Plus users, there's a small variation in the main boards, which now have a small tab in the upper right-hand corner. We recommend taking a small file and shaving off about 0.5 millimeter from the tab. This will ensure that the main board sits correctly in the bracket. This step is not required for users of the Hero 3. Attach the small ribbon connector. Flip down the black plastic locking mechanism to hold the LCD connector in place. Carefully move the flexible PCB jumper into the empty area where the wide-angle lens assembly resided, and match the through hole of the PCB board with the mount on the PCB plate. Attach the board with the small metallic 1/8 inch Phillips screw provided. Note that part of the flexible connector should remain tucked under the board to form an S-shaped bend once attached in the next step. Connect the flexible PCB jumper to the PCB board, taking care to align the connectors prior to exerting any pressure to seat them together. The connectors should click together easily when properly aligned. Add a small piece of electrical tape to the upper side of the flexible PCB jumper to help isolate the jumper from the housing. Now it's time for a quick test. Take the GoPro battery and slide it onto the contacts located on the back of the camera. Hold the battery in place and press the power button. If the camera powers on and you were able to switch modes, everything is good. If the camera doesn't power on or you can't change modes, double check your connections and try again. Now we'll place the assembly back into the housing. If you have a Hero 3 Plus, make sure you reattach the small ribbon connected to the housing. Reinsert the ribbon into the connection socket and click down the black locking mechanism to hold it in place. This is not required for Hero 3. Take the ribcage assembly and angle it back into the housing, ensuring the HDMI and USB ports properly mate with their openings and the assembly is fully inserted. Release the screw holding on the new cover plate. Separate the plate slightly and rotate it about 10 degrees to reveal the 4 screw holes located in the corners. Insert the original 4 corner fastening screws. Tighten them until snug. Next, turn the unit over and place the power button in position within the cover plate. Guide it in with your screwdriver if necessary. Click the cover plate back into place. Fasten the cover plate with 4 of the black screws provided. Closely fit all 4 screws before tightening all the way. Do not over-tighten. A snug fit is all that's required. If you plan to use M12 lenses similar to the original GoPro lens, insert one of the tiny set screws into the top of the M12 ring using the small L key provided. Screw the CS mount ring into place over the M12 ring. Insert the remaining tiny set screw into the CS ring, and then tighten until snug using the provided Allen key. Use a puffer to remove any debris from the assembly. Reattach the battery and accessories. If you've chosen to have a removable IR cut filter, remove the CS mount ring and thread the plastic IR cut holder into the front until it drops into place at the bottom. The plastic holder is designed to have a snug fit, so please take your time and don't force the part. Drop the IR cut filter into the front of the M12 ring and screw the CS mount ring back into position on top. In order to attach C-mount lenses, attach the 5mm C-mount spacer ring. Attach the tripod plate using the remaining black screws provided. Now we're all done. Go out and enjoy your new camera and have fun experimenting with different lenses.